Hi friends, welcome back on Easy Learning. My today's topic is menstrual cycle. So first, coming to its definition, what does menstrual cycle mean? It is defined as a cyclic events. There are cyclic events which are taking place one after the other in a rhythmic fashion during the reproductive period of woman's life. Basically, the cycle of events starting from one menstruation till the next one is called as menstrual cycle. The duration of each menstrual cycle is usually 28 days, but it can vary to about 20 to 40 days also. Menstrual cycles include ovarian cycle and uterine cycle. Ovarian cycle, these are the changes taking place in the ovary. Uterine cycle, changes taking place in the uterus. So first, coming to the ovarian cycle. In this video, we're going to study in detail about the ovarian cycle itself. So ovarian cycle include recruitment of group of follicles, selection of dominant follicle and its maturation, ovulation, corpus luteum formation, then demise of corpus luteum. So first, coming to the recruitment of group of follicles, it is presumed that about 20 antral follicle, that is 5 to 10 from each ovaries, proceed to the development in each cycle. So certain changes occur in the oocyte, that is, it enlarges in size out of proportion to the size of the follicle. Example, these are the number of antral follicle which is participating in the cycle. There is enlargement of the oocyte. Then the oocyte is surrounded by an acellular barrier of glycoprotein produced by the follicular cell called the Zona Pellucida. Number of antral follicles taking part in the cycle, enlargement of the oocyte, formation of Zona Pellucida. This is Zona Pellucida, which is formed from the follicular cell itself. Then the flattened outer single layer pregranulosa cell, they become cuboidal and multilayered, and now it is called as granulosa cell. Number of follicles taking part in the cycle, enlargement of oocyte, formation of Zona Pellucida, which is formed from the follicular cell. Then the pregranulosa, these are the flattened pregranulosa cell which give rise to cuboidal cells. Those are called granulosa, and these are usually multi-layered. I have just drawn one layer of it over here. Then there is appearance of gap junction between the granulosa cell and the oocyte. Through this gap junction itself, the nutrition to the oocyte is maintained. There is differentiation of theca interna, and granulosa cell acquire FSH receptors. So here, in the initial recruitment and growth of primordial follicles is not controlled by any hormone. After a certain stage, that is when the primordial follicle reaches about 2 to 5 mm in size, then it is controlled by FSH. Unless the follicles are rescued by the FSH at this stage, they undergo atresia. The second, that is selection of dominant follicle and its maturation. I'm going to explain you this with the help of this diagram. Here, the granulosa cell will grow faster when compared to this theca cell. The follicular fluid is formed. This is the follicular fluid which is formed. This is an ultrafiltrate of blood vessels within the theca interna. The fluid-filled space is called as antrum. Here, the granulosa cells surrounding the oocyte. These are the granulosa cells which are surrounding the oocyte, and this is called as cumulus ophorus. Okay. The cells adjacent to the oocyte. The cells adjacent to the oocyte which are arranged radially is called as corona radiata. Okay. The theca cells. The theca cells are separated by the granulosa cells by the membrane called the basement membrane, or it is also called as membrana granulosa. Here, LH may act on this membrane to depolarize it and to facilitate vascularization to the granulosa cell. Okay. So the next is ovulation, which occurs on 14th day. The dominant follicle shortly before the ovulation reaches the surface of the ovary. Reaches near the surface of the ovary. Okay. Example, this is the Graafian follicle. It comes near the surface of the ovarian surface, where it is picked up by the femoral end of the fallopian tube. Next, the cumulus ophorus. This is cumulus ophorus which gets detached from the granulosa cells and lies freely in the antrum. The oocyte completes the first meiotic division with the formation of first polar body, which is pushed towards the perivitelline space, the follicular wall near the ovarian surface. See, this is the follicular wall which is near to the ovarian surface. It becomes thinner. Then stigma develops. This stigma develops as a conical projection. This is the stigma which is developed as a conical projection, which penetrates the outer surface of the ovary and persists for a while as a thin membrane. Here, example, this is cumulus ophorus in the Graafian follicle, which was lying freely in the follicular fluid. It escapes out slowly by a slow oozing process. The stigma is soon closed by the plug of plasma. Here, there is LH surge. LH surge causes completion of reduction division of the oocyte, initiates luteinization of granulosa cell, synthesis of progesterone and prostaglandin, and FSH surge is also there, which causes lysis of the wall of the follicle. Both FSH and the LH surge is responsible for the final stage maturation, rupture of follicle, and expulsion of the oocyte. Then comes formation of corpus luteum. After the expulsion, the remaining content forms the corpus luteum. There is proliferation, vascularization, maturation, and regression. In proliferation, the granulosa cell, the remaining granulosa cell after the expulsion of cumulus ophorus, that will undergo hypertrophy. The cells become large and frothy cytoplasm. The cells are called granulosa lutein cells. The color of the corpus luteum here is grayish yellow in color. Then there is vascularization. Within 24 hours, small capillaries grows into the granulosa cell layer, accompanied by the lymphatics and the fibroblast, which later rupture and bleed in the cavity. Then comes maturation. By 7th and the 8th day after the ovulation, the corpus luteum reaches its peak and attains the size of 1 to 2 cm and reaches its secretory peak. Okay. Here there is hypertrophy of the theca cells, and that is called as para-lutein cell. Some theca lutein cells are called as K cells, which invade the granulosa layer. The lutein cell become greatly enlarged and develop lipid inclusion, giving a cell a distinct yellowish color. The color is mainly due to the pigment carotene. The cavity may be small and containing scanty amount of fluid in it. Then comes regression of corpus luteum. On the day, that is 23rd and 22 and 23rd of the cycle, retrogression start. There is deposition of fat in the lutein cells and appearance of hyaline tissue between them. The lutein cell atrophy and the corpus luteum forms corpus albicans. Regression is mainly due to withdrawal of LH support. LH secretion must be continued for the function of corpus luteum, failure of which the corpus luteum will regress. LH will stimulate the corpus luteum to secrete the progesterone. With the help of this diagram, I'm going to explain you how hypothalamo-pituitary axis is maintained. From hypothalamus, GnRH, gonadotrophin releasing hormone, is released, which will act on anterior pituitary, which causes the release of FSH and LH. FSH will act on ovarian follicle and LH will act on the theca cells. Ovarian cycle, if it acts, then ovarian follicle, it enlarges in size and finally form Graafian follicle. The granulosa cell, it will secrete estrogen. Then the estrogen will give a positive feedback to the anterior pituitary for FSH and LH surge. FSH, as I told you, it causes lysis of the follicle. Then LH surge causes completion of the reduction division of the oocyte, and it initiates the luteinization of granulosa cell, synthesis of progesterone and prostaglandin. These are the functions of LH. Both FSH and LH surge is responsible for ovulation and formation of corpus luteum. So, when there is a withdrawal of LH support, causes regression of corpus luteum. So, in short, there is GnRH being released from the hypothalamus. It acts on anterior pituitary. There is FSH and LH released. FSH acts on ovarian follicle. It causes enlargement of ovarian follicle, finally formation of Graafian follicle. Then granulosa cells causes release of estrogen. Estrogen gives a positive feedback to the anterior pituitary that causes LH and FSH surge, FSH and LH surge. This causes ovulation, then finally formation of corpus luteum. Withdrawal of LH support causes regression of corpus luteum. Finally, I hope friends you understood this, and if you have did, then please do subscribe, and please don't forget to share this. Thank you so much.